better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and joining me today is the car dealership guy, Yossi. Yossi, welcome back.
Let's go. What a show we have today. I'm looking forward to it.
Dude, it's awesome to have you back. It's awesome to be here, to have our entire audience here. Thanks for choosing to join the best automotive content anywhere online, in store, anywhere. And speaking of that, Yossi, yesterday you dropped a pod that was super interesting. And I know it's creating a lot of commentary online and elsewhere. You've gotten some calls on it. GM Josh Clinton, super insightful. And do you care if we talk about it here for just a quick second? I have a couple questions from it. So
did you listen to it? Did you listen to it yet, Sam?
Yes. Yeah. Listened to it this morning. And in fact, it's funny.
What'd you
Have
think?
you ever listened to a podcast and you're like, you want to ask a question as the podcast is going on? You're like, what about? Now, we give that opportunity here, and you can post your comments to the live stream. You can post them to all the socials. We'll bring them into the show. We can't do it on yours yet. Maybe that'll happen at some point in the future. But there were a couple things where I'm like, I want to know more. So here's a question I have. He said at some point that he uploaded his dealership financial statement to Chat GPT Deep Research. And I'm like, A, how cool is that? Because you could probably get some fast insights, but terrifying. Like, from a privacy standpoint, what's your take on that? Privacy privacy as it relates to Chat GPT, and then uploading data like that's sensitive organizational data.
I mean, my honest take is I would do it. I mean, I've done it. I've uploaded very sensitive stuff there. And I know that's maybe not everyone's, not everyone has that type of tolerance, but I don't know. I'm for it. Yes, an article just came out the other day that's like, anything you say in ChatGPT and upload and blah 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 can be used against you in court. So that's interesting. Another article came out. Yeah, another article came out, and it stated that if you click the share button on ChatGPT on the chat, you press the share button, it automatically begins indexing in Google. Right? Get that. So understand this, right? You search anything, you ask anything, you create anything. The second you hit that share button, it gets indexed into Google. That's what I read. So anyone
but
listening can
then your dealership financial statements are indexed on Google, Yossi. That's not good.
Oh, I think there's an option to turn it off. But obviously, yes, that's exactly the concern what you just voiced out there. So look, I think all in all, I don't think I would lean into it. That's just my personality. Like I lean into these things. Sometimes, it could be a mistake, but I like to lean in and try things out. Because I just think the benefits are enormous, right? To upload your financial statement to Deep Research and to tell it, give me the three biggest areas of opportunity in my store, in my group. Dude, you're talking about things that used to take days, hours, meetings, offsites. I mean, this is very big stuff.
So what will eventually be the liability implications of that? Like, and I don't think we know that yet, just like self-driving liability is being proved out in court with Tesla right now. Like data that you upload, like that new deep research function, it will map your Google Drive. It will map your SharePoint, which is typically a secured corporate drive. It will map your email, your calendar, all of that. And to your point on the show, it'll find stuff that would be almost impossible for a human to find. But then at what cost, right? I'm going to be curious. And then he talked about taking leads and feeding that into Chat GPT for response prompts. I don't know. I'm super curious about that. It'd be interesting to have somebody on this show to talk about the liability
We
implications.
will. And I already spoke with Josh this morning, and we will do a part 2. So, some dealers asked me for that. So we will bring him on the show and we'll talk about more. And he has some other ideas. And I think in general, anyone that is, tinkering with this kind of stuff, let us know. We'll would love to discuss. So we'll do a follow-up on that.
One great quote that I came away with is he says, you said, hey, where do you start this AI journey? And he said, look, become the AI expert in your dealership. If you become the expert, then you'll be able to see the trajectory of change and what happens next. And you'll be able to practically implement some of those things. He said he hasn't implemented a single thing into his BDC to help automate or
Which
generate
was shocking.
AI,
I
which is
didn't
shocking.
believe that when he said it. Yeah.
It
Someone
it's
is,
shocking, but it's
he's
not surprising. Some of those tools, maybe to him and others, aren't quite there yet, and they replace a salesperson in ways that
yeah.
aren't helpful.
I
Yossi.
meant shocking in the sense that he is clearly leaning into these products, and that was something that,
Yeah,
is pretty good adoption in the industry. And I was just surprised to see that, he's not using that. But nonetheless, clearly very big changes here with the capabilities of these tools, and it's freaking free. Like literally, what is it, $20
yeah,
a month? I mean, it's free,
yeah,
right? So anyone can use
yeah,
it, and you almost don't need a brain cell to try it. So it's
yeah.
pretty incredible.
But you got to be you got to, like, for a group our size and other sizes, you've got to consider the privacy implications. We would never want. I don't think any of our GMs uploading a financial, and it's so easy to do. Like I would just I we need to do that soon at some point on this show, just talking about how that works from a privacy standpoint and what's publicly available, what's not publicly
Yep.
available, and then if you want to do that, how do you protect it so that you can do it the right way? Because until
And I
then, I
do
would
agree
say
with
that
that.
people I know don't upload it, right?
No,
Yeah.
I do agree with that. I think, when, bigger, more stakeholders, bigger group, I just think that, the game is a bit different there because you're putting
Yeah.
something out there that, you know, you're not like you're not the only shareholder of the company. You're not the only stakeholder, right? Like you're not like a
Yeah.
sole dealer principal of one
Right.
small lot. So I just
Yeah.
think that's a bit different. And I can understand your concern and your perspective. I would say ultimately I would look for, the solutions because I think that the opportunity is huge. So
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, let's get into today's show. And in fact, some of our guests today might have some commentary on this. We've got some data experts in their own right. So check out what we're bringing up to you today. Herr is joining today to talk about tackling negative equity, a bunch of data topics, I think, there, as well as lead generation. And DataScan CEO is here to talk about floor plan breakdown. But first, let's dive, Yossi, into today's automotive headlines. So first up today, if you feel like used car prices are up, well, Carfax would tell you they are. After falling last summer, used car prices are now up year over year across nearly every segment. But on a month over month basis, price increases are starting to somewhat slow, likely due to a brief surge of newer trade ins fueled by tariff fears and tax credit shifts, which jolted supply. As of August, luxury used cars jumped $350. Luxury SUVs were up $200. Pickups rose $340, and hybrid EVs increased by $130. Interesting that the EVs had the smallest increase, and you lump hybrids in, you probably get a little bit bigger on that. However, vans and minivans fell more than $350, and SUVs dipped slightly by $50. Price pressures typically ease in the second half of the year, but retail sales remain strong and supply is still tight, which will likely support higher values in the coming months. Next up today, July sales held steady across the board as hybrids, light truck, and smart inventory planning continued to win in today's market. Honda sold 123,150 units. That's a 6.2% year over year increase. Hyundai and Kia also posted gains while Toyota moved more than 200,000 units, with hybrids making up nearly half of all those sales. That's a surprising number. Half of all the 200,000 units Toyota sold were hybrids. Ford's total sales rose 5.6% thanks to Maverick, F-Series, and Escape Hybrid. But EV results were mixed. Sales for the Lightning were down, but the Mach-E and E-Transit both ticked up. Subaru and Mazda notched smaller gains. Meanwhile, Volvo was one of the few decliners, but its electrified lineup still grew to nearly 29% of its sales mix. What's the bottom line here? Well, brands that kept inventory aligned with where demand actually is came out ahead, and they didn't necessarily need to get heavy discounts to get there. Next up today, we're going to the M&A alert, our CDG buy sell tracker. For those interested, you can go there to learn more about this and other buy sells that are currently happening real time. Group 1 Automotive just added another store to its roster, acquiring Mercedes-Benz of Buckhead in Atlanta, Georgia, from the Bronco family. The high-performing luxury dealership located near Mercedes-Benz USA's headquarters is considered one of the most desirable stores in the region and is expected to bring in $210 million in annual revenue. The store is also expected to bring in that amount and sits near Mercedes-Benz USA's headquarters, making it one of the most sought-after luxury rooftops in the Southeast. The deal includes all real estate and was advised by the Presidio Group. Gregory and Juanita Barranco will continue operating their Mercedes-Benz store in Covington, Louisiana. So far this year, Group 1 has acquired $640 million in annual revenue, following $3.9 billion last year in 2024. So M&A buy-sell activity is hot right now. So again, go to the tracker to learn more about that. And finally up today, this is interesting to think about. What is the longest
The
run
link.
of any electric
Can't
vehicle?
forget the link, right?
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
cdgbuysell.com.
Let's
Gotta get the
go.
plug.
Let's go. Let's go. Well,
cdgbuysell.com.
and we
I
bring
gotta
you
get a shirt,
updates on M&L.
cdgbuysell.com.
You should. You should. We bring
I
M&A
know.
updates 3 times a week. This is
I
daily,
know.
hourly. Like this is
Let's
real
go.
time. So
We should also get hats, so.
we should, and a coffee mug or a Bang cup
Yeah.
in my case. So yeah. Finally up to date, GM logged a milestone in the EV race. Yossi, this is interesting. There's a Chevy Silverado EV that traveled. What do you think the max number of miles on a single charge for a Silverado truck? There's a comma
I
in
mean,
this.
well, I can just say that I was looking at the Escalade IQ. I'm like fascinated by this vehicle, and I was shocked
Yeah.
about its range. Its range is like 600 something miles. So I'm gonna guess that it's pretty significant.
Yeah. 1,059 miles on a single
There you go.
charge. That more than doubles its official range. And it was achieved with a few clever tweaks like max tire pressure, a cover, drive. Oh, actually, does it really matter that you can get 1,000 miles out of a truck if you're only driving 20 to 25 miles an hour during a 7-day run near GM's Milford Proving Grounds in Detroit's Belle Isle? I would say no, because nobody ever
No.
drives 20 miles an hour. Yeah.
I think once you cross, I don't know, 3 to 400, I don't think there's much
Yeah.
of a difference. Maybe 350 to 400, right? At that
Yeah.
point, it's
That's
moot.
range.
So,
Yeah. So, props to GM for figuring that out. We'll see if this ends up in mass production, but I don't think anybody wants to go 25 miles an hour. So it'll be fascinating to see if it does. And that's a wrap on this week's news, Yossi.
There you go.
All right. First
What do
up
we got for
today,
guests?
let's dive into our first guest today, executive from Herr Automotive Group. Welcome to the show, Matt Lasher. Matt, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good
Got
to
you in
have
the
you here.
car,
Oh, you're
connection's better.
remote too. Yeah.
Listen,
What?
we got to do what we got to do, right? We're
Yeah.
in search of a signal here in the middle of Washington State.
Where are you actually? Are you on family trip? Are you on a vacation? Do we have you live?
I am. I'm in Clay Elm, Washington, about an hour and a half outside of Seattle, in the middle of nowhere at a resort called Suncadia.
Nice, nice. Well, as long as we keep your connection, we'll keep you on here. But
Pulling
before
into
we go
a parking lot though right now, so hopefully we got a good signal here, right here in the forest.
This is a CDG first in the middle of Washington backwoods, a live shot. So, but before we ask you to share a little bit about yourself and your organization, Matt, tell us how's biz for you in your world, Herr?
Matt, can you hear us?
I can. Okay.
All right. So we're saying
how's biz,
Go
Matt, at Herr? How's biz? Can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me.
All
right. Well,
I didn't catch. Yeah, sorry.
Yossi, why don't you
we're in the
ask
middle
it?
of nowhere here, so
No, it's okay.
my
I get it.
apologies for the shaky connection.
You know what? Let's bring you back. Let's pop you into the backstage for just a minute. Let's see if we can get your signal stabilized a little bit. I would ask if you're in a Tesla and if you're attached to Starlink, but we don't want to give Tesla any advertising there. So can you hear me now a little bit better, Matt?
Sam.
Nope, he can't. All right.
So we'll get Matt back. I think I'm curious to know many things. Matt's been working on he's been like negative equity is a big discussion that I'd like to have with him because they've actually built internal tech at Herr in New York to tackle negative equity.
Yeah.
I'm also interested in understanding. I saw they have like a collaboration with Josh Allen. It's a NFL player. For those that don't know, and I'm just curious to know like why. I mean, Matt was the head of marketing there for a very long period of time. So, what's the ROI on that? Why did they decide to do that? How impactful has it been on the business? I think these are the types of questions. Herr is, it's a strong group, large group. So when we get Matt back, hopefully with a better connection, we'll ask him that. But in the meantime, Sam, back to you.
All right. So a couple comments from online, then we'll go to our next guest. So Ian Hahn said the scary thing about uploading these things into Chat GPT. Yossi, the conversation earlier is coming back. Is that I've heard conversations can be found by random users. So you said that, Yossi, you can index. And then Lauren Klein says that's scary. Who has access to the info? Scary is an interesting word. I just think we need to understand it, and I think this is a great form and format to get kind of to the bottom line and understand it. If I knew I could upload something and it would be secure and safe, and that we'd be doing everything we needed to do as stewards of that data, what a great resource. But I need to understand that it's safe before I'm willing to engage with it. Otherwise, I think it is a little bit of a challenge. So, all right, let's go to our first guest now. CEO of DataScan, Brian Koprowski. BK, welcome to the show, if we've got you.
Today's a special. There you go.
There you go, BK. How are you doing?
He's muted.
And he's still muted.
Wait.
There we go.
How are you, Brian?
I'm good. I'm not in the middle of Washington. I'm in Alpharetta, Georgia. So just excited to have a good, hopefully stable connection here with you guys.
Yeah. So Sam, last time I was with Brian, and the first time I was with Brian, it happened to be at a rodeo. So that's a long story. That's actually not that long. DataScan put on an event, and we were there, and it was pretty exciting. So Brian is he's impressive. He knows how to really make a strong appearance with the horses and stuff. And that was quite the experience.
So Yossi, you can't drop that bit of knowledge without saying how many seconds for you or BK. How did this go? How many seconds?
It wasn't for me, although I did do the,
which I do have video of, by the way. I have video of you on the mechanical bull. So if anybody wants,
the mechanical bull, that's what it was.
I love it.
Brian, kick us off with you're well ingrained into. I'll let you explain what DataScan does, but you're well ingrained into to the lender side of our business, the floor plans, right? Like the I would say the intersection of the dealers interacting with the lenders and the floor plans. Can you just kick us off with just what you do? And I'd like to get to a little bit of like a state of the union of what you're seeing in that world, but just kick us off a little bit about what you actually do there.
Yeah, so DataScan's been around for over 35 years. We're the industry leader in floor plan accounting systems and floor plan auditing services. So for certainly Sam and any of the listeners out there, dealerships, they probably ran across our team. We've got over 300 folks in the field in the U.S. and Canada performing floor plan audits. Our system is managing over $100 billion worth of automotive collateral today, and a little over 2 million units on the system. So we've got some pretty good size and scale, and we've been really focused on how do we help the industry as a whole versus just each unique lender with their kind of management of their floor plan operations.
Brian, how can it be that it's 2025 and there's still manual audits happening on dealer lots? I feel like that should not be happening. A floor plan audit, right? We've all experienced it, unless you own all your inventory at your respective dealership and have no floor plan whatsoever. How can that be?
It's because we have a lot of disconnected data. The data does exist. It's out there. We know that. You've got, retail data that comes in across the industry. It's generally all the same floor plan lenders are doing retail loans, whether they're captives or banks, right? But they're not all doing them for the same dealers, and dealers obviously have to have multiple retail options for their various customer profiles. And so those systems are not connected. Our systems are generally not connected with DMS systems. So getting the access though, they are relying on us to go out and conduct a floor plan audit. What the collateral position is at the dealership. And we're trying to change that with our new risk gauge product. Data, as I mentioned, from a retail perspective would be huge from a lender perspective to understand what units are sold. That's where they have the risk, right? Units sold and not paid. To know that without us having to go out and do an audit would be great. Today, a lender generally flies blind from audit to audit. So they know generally things are getting paid off and things are getting floored, but they don't know, are they getting paid off on time? Are they getting paid off out of trust? How late are they? What are the payoff trends? All the data they look at on the back end to manage risk has been really just focuses from audit to audit. And we're trying to change that to make it more data driven so that when somebody does show up to do a floor plan audit, it's because there's either a reason or they want to kick the tires once a year, right? Just make sure everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
But we believe the data that even when we do show up can significantly reduce the impact in the amount of time that we have to spend at a location, looking through deal jackets, bothering the accounting staff, doing all the things that nobody likes to do on a floor plan audit. We believe we can kind of flip that on its head and really just be more focused on where we actually have risk.
How does
Now,
that work?
go ahead,
Oh,
Sam.
go ahead. How does that work practically? So, where does your system reside, and then what type of info? So, I'm in an office. I've got units in, units out. I've got vehicles sitting on a lot. Like, what does your system do to help simplify that from a practical standpoint?
Yeah. So the goal going forward is we're kind of pulling the retail data together from across the industry, and we're using that to say, okay, if you're with lender A on the retail side, but your floor plans with lender B, how can we notify that, even flip the system, right, that a unit has been sold. So today there's a lot of double entering of data going on. You're doing double entry in your DMS system. You're likely logging into our system or another floor plan lender system to pay off that unit. Generally, the flooring's pretty simple. On new units, we're generally connected directly with the OEM, so it just flows directly to the floor plan. Obviously, used units, trade-ins, those are all getting keyed in manually. If we can figure out ways to leverage the data and interact, maybe connect our system with a DMS system, right? So that the data and the transaction flows through as it happens. So your staff on the back end is not having to double enter that and figure out what's being floored, when it needs to go in, when it needs to get paid off. A lot of that can be automated if the systems are connected.
So a lot of this data is available. It's not necessarily automated, but it's available today. What's keeping most dealers from using the data effectively? Is it the fact that it is manual and it's not automated, or is it just not readily accessible or available, or what's the unique piece that you have that's able to bring all that together?
I think the unique piece we bring is the scale, right? We've got, pretty large market shares, certainly in auto, but obviously other asset types as well. But I think bringing our clients together to come up with industry level solutions that everybody wins from, the floor plan lender, the retail lender, as well as dealers. We've been out meeting with a bunch of dealers about back office operations, and everybody focuses on the front end and sales, right? But the back
Yeah.
office operations process is fairly manual. A couple dealers we went to, they had a full-time person literally just reconciling retail payments with deposits in the bank account. And those are things that we have the retail transactions, we have the information on the floor plan and the vehicles. We can pull that together and make everybody's life a little bit easier.
Hey, Brian, what's the pulse on the market right now? Given you have all this exposure, right, to floor plan lenders and dealers and the recipients of that capital, like what is right now? Where are we? Just August 2025. What's just the overall pulse?
I mean, I would say, what we really track is kind of the inventories on the ground, because we have, over 2 million units on the system. We get a pretty good sense of where the market's going. We've seen a lot of activity up and down over the last 6 to 8 weeks as the tariff, news changes on a minute by minute basis. Units several weeks dipped pretty significantly, and they would go up for a couple weeks and dip. So we've been wobbling for the last 6 to 8 weeks on inventory levels. We haven't really seen an increase. We are projecting an increase the second half of the year. I believe we saw a few articles where they're expecting production in the second half of the year to be about 400,000 units higher than the first half of the year out of North America. So hopefully, as units will start to flow back into dealerships pretty consistently now that most of the major deals are done.
Yeah, what's driving that when you say additional units in the latter part of the year?
I believe
why
yeah, everything we heard was, manufacturers were holding up on production, trying to figure out the tariff impact, the parts impact, the parts pricing, factory. There was a little bit of a delay. There always is around the 4th of July. I think a lot of factories are shut down over that period, but I think a lot of OEMs are trying to figure out what their go forward plan was related to tariffs and pricing.
Yeah, I figured that. All right. Sam, I mean,
So,
if you,
so you,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to ask. So, you guys have a newer product called Risk Gauge. Tell us a little bit about that, what it does, how it benefits.
Yeah,
What's
so
that
Risk
product?
Gauge is our new risk management platform. As I mentioned, historically, we've done physical audits, turned that data over to the lenders. They work with the dealers to resolve the audit and manage their risk management practices going forward in some other system. What we're trying to do is, again, as I mentioned earlier, leverage the data, bring it into the Risk Gauge platform so that a lender and potentially a dealer has more continuous monitoring on what's on their floor plan, what's in, what's out, where they have exposure. That we know there's a lot of really good quality dealers that are probably getting audited more frequently than they need to be, but it is because there's not a consistent flow of data to the floor plan lender. And so banks are regulated by the OCC, so they have different parameters than the captives. And so a good captive with a good credit quality dealer, they might only go in there once or twice a year anyway. But where a bank might be going in once a month, even once a quarter at a minimum. So, go ahead.
So is it dealers that are asking for this, or is it the lenders that are asking for this? Because it does seem like it's gonna create more transparency in a dealer operations, right? Which is good for the dealer because it reduces inefficiencies and makes flow better. But it also speeds up that process, right? There's no delay time between, let's say, payoff and paying off your floor plan, to your point, right? It increases transparency. So is it the dealer who's asking for it, or the lender, typically the floor plan carrier?
I would say this started a few years ago with some of our lenders. Everybody's really looking for ways to reduce their risk management costs, right? So how can I reduce the amount of physical audits I'm doing? It's a big number on their P&L from a lender perspective. We're a big part of that. But clearly we're trying to disrupt ourselves and help reduce that cost. Because for us, it's expensive, right? You got to say, and we've got, as I mentioned, 300 people in the US and Canada going out to 6,000 to 8,000 dealerships a month. I mean, it's not, the cost of labor does not go down. So this becomes more and more expensive. So we've got to figure out a better way to do it.
And by the way, so Sam, when I was with Brian in person, that was one of the questions I asked him. I said, number one, I respect the fact that as someone that literally performs audits and they are building something to disrupt themselves. That's like the classic innovator's dilemma. And it takes a certain type of culture to do that, right? Because it's just, remember, you're literally disrupting yourself. And if you don't do it, someone else will do it. The second question I asked Brian was, we were sitting with one of the gentlemen that manages the auditing team. And I said, how are you communicating this internally? I said, because you literally have hundreds of auditors. And they started explaining this to me. And I thought, his response was fair. It was like, listen, this is not going to go away completely, clearly, but there will be a future with a smaller team. And it's going to take time, right? It's not like tomorrow it's going to happen. So, I thought that was a good conversation. And Brian, if you remember, I did have one more question I asked you at that when we were eating lunch. And that was, I said, is there a way to create some value for the dealers, to create some relationship where you have access to all this data? And I don't exactly know what that value is, but being in your position, having all the inventory analytics, it just came to mind. I said, how can this be more value add for the dealers as opposed to viewing, inventory auditing stuff? I mean, it's very mundane. It feels like it's like a cost center, right? It's an expense. You just got to do it. But like, there's data there. Can that data be, for example, shared with maybe specific other lenders and stuff to get more favorable rates, right? Like, this is a low risk dealer. I don't even know, but I'm just thinking, like, everything in our economy has been atomized, right? Look at like car insurance, right? You have companies that will literally charge you by the mile, right? Everything has become atomized. So naturally, where my brain went was like, is there some opportunity here, when you had asked me, like, what can be done to better support the industry? So anyways, that's me getting back to our conversation, and hopefully I didn't butcher that. But that's what I remember we discussed.
Yeah, and it's an interesting concept. We did talk about, like, whether it's a standardized risk score across dealers from a floor plan perspective, right? So we've got enough data, we've got enough history. Could you score a dealer very consistently? Now, every lender looks at their risk scorecard very differently. They all have different metrics. They all have different ratings. They weight things differently. But we could do it across the industry with one standard score. Think of it as a DNB rating, right? You used to get a Paydex rating for how companies paid their bills, and people would look at that when they were evaluating whether they wanted to take on a company. You could do a very similar thing where, hey, I've scored a 4.5 out of 5 on the DataScan risk score, and to your point, does that drive down their rate? Could they shop their floor plan business based on that? Could it give the dealer a little bit of an advantage to go out to the market and get a little better rate? And again, if we're leveraging all the digital, because again, some of this data, if we're going to get access to some DMS data, the dealer's going to have to raise his hand and agree to it, right? We can't just go grab it. So there's going to have to be benefit for the dealer in this process. So that's one of the things we're working on right now with the lenders, is trying to put together a advisory council on how do we figure out the benefit to retail lenders, floor plan lenders, and dealers.
Yeah. Final question for, as we wrap up here, a question from social media. DNC asks, how do you envision, and you answered a little bit of this, how do you envision AI impacting floor plan audits, whether on the mobile device out in the field or with software assisting with the reconciliation process? BK.
Thinking about that for a second. Because it was a great topic. You guys mentioned it earlier. We've been very, because of the nature of what we do, we've been very cautious about how we use AI and how we approach AI topics. A lot of our customers, are, kind of restricting the usage of AI. But what we've done internally, you guys brought up Chat GPT. Our InfoSec and compliance team has done a great job in our IT group about looking for ways to leverage those tools, but behind our corporate, Microsoft accounts, so that you still have access to, whether it's Copilot or you can tie in Chat GPT, but it's going through your corporate log and you're not paying the $20 as an individual sending stuff out on your own account. So we figured out ways to leverage those AI tools. But we think there's some impact with ML models once we get the data in there, that we can start driving really what I would say more predictive risk analytics for lenders, potentially for dealers. We've talked about cash management processes. AI could be used to match up deposits and reconcile those with retail sales transactions. So there's a lot of different ways we can leverage AI going forward. But it's probably more about being predictive about when you go up and what are you going to look at when you actually show up to do an audit. So we're not touching.
Interesting perspective. Yeah, interesting perspective. I got to throw this out. Just putting your financial statement, Chat GPT, good idea, bad idea, interesting. What's your take on that?
Phenomenal idea.
I love it.
I would say bad idea, but yeah. On the
until you have the firewall. Yeah. Until you have the firewall, you figure out how to make it private. All right. Brian Koprowski, BK, CEO of DataScan. Thanks for coming on the show to share your perspectives on all things floor plan.
Thanks, Brian.
Awesome, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Have a good one.
Sam, this is why we balance each other.
Yeah. I had to ask. I know I had to ask.
You love it. It's good.
There's a lot of data that he has there. I was trying to figure out, who is asking for this service? Like in the old world, not for a group my size or not for groups that are well run, floating a lender was a big practice, right? And you, particularly in used cars, right? You see that a lot. This prevents a dealer from doing that, and it provides a lot of transparency behind dealer processes. So I see that there's a balance of making it more efficient, but then also the greater transparency sometimes could be used against a dealer. Fair?
It could. Yeah, he has, they have lots of access to good inventory data. So naturally my brain was saying, okay, when we were trying to say, how can this exactly, how else can you benefit the dealer body, given you have access to all this data? So
all right, before we come to our last guest, let's turn to who's supporting today's show. So Hague Partners, public retailers cite it, national media trust it, dealers rely on it. The Hague Report sets the standard for dealership M&A and trends in auto retail. Read the report at haguepartners.com/Hague-report, or do the better thing, scan the QR code in the corner there. It'll take you right there. Or if you're listening to the podcast post live stream, you can go to the show notes. That information is available there as well. So
Hague Report is one of our most popular downloads, I should say. So they get lots of downloads because lots of great information, primarily if you're in the market to buy or sell a dealership. So it's if you're in that market, you're probably familiar, and if not, you are now.
Yeah, ton of great data. So before we transition, Dan C says lenders get a lot of benefit from floor plan audits, especially when we go through an economic downturn. So transparency is always good. That increases trust, credibility, and all that. So final guest up today, we turned to executive at Herr Automotive Group, back again from the backwoods of Washington State, Matt Lasher. Welcome, Matt.
Hey guys, hey, thanks for bearing with me, and I appreciate you. Hopefully I'm a little more stable Wi-Fi here.
You're 20 by 20.
We scared you off with our question of how's biz. I mean, I hope it's not that bad.
It's not bad. No, although business is getting tougher, though. Let's acknowledge that.
What area are you,
Matt? Yeah, please.
Well, I mean, look at new car volume at Herr 40 store group, Buffalo, New York, sell about 60,000+ cars a year, 3,000 employees, service over 500,000. Last month, new car sales were pretty flat, but used cars were down maybe 5-6% group wide. So it's getting more challenging, especially on the used car side.
What are some things that you're doing to combat that curve in August of 2025 to get back to that point of increasing sales, increasing margins? What are a couple strategies you've implemented across the group?
Look, some of this is psychology, right? We always compare ourselves to month over month or year over year.
Yeah.
I like to look in maybe 5-year windows. Things are still pretty good relative to 17, 18, 19. But look, you have to have a lot of discipline these days. So the muscles that maybe got weak during COVID, are coming back and being required. So it requires a disciplined team, disciplined follow-up, disciplined engagement, disciplined merchandising, disciplined sourcing, disciplined pricing, disciplined wholesale, trying to leverage new tools. You got plenty of tools out there for acquiring used cars or disposing of used cars, new tools like Dealer Club, shout out to Joe Neiman, a Buffalo-based guy as well. So there's a lot going on, but we do got to go back to the gym, keep working out, strengthen our muscles.
Matt, talk to me about marketing. You were, for quite a long period, head of marketing. You're still an executive at Herr, but you're working on, some additional stuff, which we'll talk about shortly. What has worked for you recently? Like, from a marketing perspective, you have some big campaign with Josh Allen, which I saw on your website. Give us a little lay of the land. We'd love to know how you think about marketing strategy, a mix, and stuff like that.
So I'm definitely a art is better than science kind of guy when it comes to marketing. I think you need to make content that's interesting, entertaining, engaging, real. Nobody really wants a commercial or to be sold to. So we're trying to make brand connections. You mentioned the Team Herr Josh Allen thing. That was about 5 years or so, I guess, in the making since he's joined the team, maybe 6 years now.
That campaign took you 5 years to actually bring to life?
Yeah, it really started. So me and Brad Gelber, who is running the marketing team now, we were talking in 2017 about Instagram and what type of content should we make for Instagram. And we felt like we needed a celebrity or some sort of like engaging content. And in Buffalo, New York, the only celebrities you got are the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills or maybe local newscasters. So there's not a lot of local talent there in Western New York. And we just happened to, start playing around with Josh and figuring out ways to engage with them. And we've really grown the relationship with him and Deion Dawkins and Dawson Knox on the Bills, really by investing in them as people and investing in their relationships and what they care about in the community, the special causes that they participate in. And it's been just a journey where we've gotten to know these guys over the last few years, but it's grown into not just celebrity endorsements, but also Team Herr as a concept for the 3,000 people that we have at the team within the company, to embrace as a whole, community-wide initiative.
And what's your measurement of success of a campaign like that? I have to imagine it's not, I'm only looking for a direct conversion because like good luck, right? An investment. Go ahead. How do you measure success?
Look, so I've spent 10 years, 15 years maybe in Google Analytics, trying to connect the dots, trying to solve the math equation. The more gray hair that I get, the more I lean into sort of my impulses or my instincts or, what I view as maybe engaging or authentic content. Our marketing team's hardworking and excellent storytellers. And really, we're just trying to we're like reporters, right? You're trying to just get to the heart of the matter. We have a concept called Wester Wednesdays and Technician Tuesdays, where we profile individual people within the company. We're just really trying to tell people stories and just, be as authentic as we can about who we are.
Where do you post those stories?
That too, and
all over.
Yeah. Well, to follow up with that, do you think that like has that strategy essentially been a reflection of your personality? Right? Do you think that's ultimately because it's they say like companies are built as a reflection of the founder or like their culture, and it seems like what you're telling me, storytelling and stuff like that, and hearing you speak about what's important to you, I mean, clearly, lots of overlap. So do you think that's been a reflection of you and your personality kind of going into the marketing? And we'll follow up with that with kind of your distribution strategy, which is what Sam asked. Where do you actually distribute it to?
Look, absolutely. CMOs is the shortest tenured C-suite position that exists,
Correct.
I think, right? And it's largely because you have to have a special relationship with the CEO. And there's going to be a lot of belief and trust in those strategies that are not perfectly articulated, perfectly measured. It does not take, it's not an accounting science here. There's a different thing that's going on. So I think I have a special relationship with Scott Beeler, the president and CEO of Herr, and that's given our team some space and some grace to be creative and to not be, look, we still got to do the month-to-month things. You still got to do the co-op management. You still got to do the lease ads. You still got to do the merchandising of the used cars and the pricing and all the things. But you got to have a little bit of space carved out for the art.
Mm-hmm.
How do you just to that distribution question? Where do you put these things?
Yeah, it's all over. I mean,
all over.
Brad Gelber does a great job of distributing content through all social media platforms in different variety of ways, different types of content and different platforms, as well as blogs. And, I think I think about it as like we started talking to ourselves as employees at Herr first. Then we started trying to talk to existing customers. Then we started to talk to people outside of that space, could be in the community philanthropic side. And then, the last outer ring there are people that don't consider Herr or would never consider Herr to buy a car from. So, that's kind of how we look at like the bullseye target of audiences, I guess.
Matt, what did you mean when you're talking about co-op management? What specifically, can you get more specific with that?
Quick little rant on co-op. The only thing that matters is if you spend the money. Nobody ever cares if you don't. If you overspend, what's fascinating to me is you could have like a nickel of unspent 100% reimbursable funds and you get alerts from all over the company of like, you forgot to spend $5. So I think from a vendor perspective, vendor tip or whatever, a lot of this like efficacy in advertising is a message that doesn't always resonate with dealers because, look, we have a lot to do. There's a lot to manage at the dealership level. And, we're trying to keep things simple and we're trying to execute. Advertising is not a perfectly solved science. So like at the end of the day, like it's very difficult. But if you don't spend that, $100,000 that you have in Kia's co-op fund, you're going to hear about it from pretty much everybody inside the company. So spend the money. How you spend it becomes somewhat less important at times.
So you've got a tremendous footprint there in New York with 40 stores and over. How do you think you've been pretty vocal online and out there about attribution, and it's particularly in our fragmented digital world? What in your mind works, and what's BS out there?
Listen, I'm a people over everything guy. So like, I just want to stress execution, daily execution is really the only way. 100% personal accountability, training your team, motivating your team, holding your team accountable is the way. There's no secret sauce shortcut to it. Right. And by the way, we're going to make mistakes also. And so when we make mistakes, the opportunity to improve or make people, we say at Herr, better than even, when we make mistakes, and inevitably we do, our goal now is to make somebody better than even, make them better than they were before, and turn that negative into a positive. So I think trying to catch the negative word of mouth, trying to be very dedicated to the craft and very disciplined to your daily exercise is really the only way. It doesn't matter that we have Josh Allen on a billboard, really. What matters is that when we, customer engages with us, calls us on the phone, walks in the store, we try to get them answers with urgency. We try to be honest and ethical and transparent, and we try to operate efficiently and all of these things. So the execution of the business, I think, is the real secret sauce, right?
So you've got the great story with Josh Allen. You've got the great story with transparency with your technicians and salespeople telling their story. You're going behind the scenes. You're sharing all this stuff out there in the world. With all of that, to your point earlier, you've still got to sell the car at the end of the day. What at West Herr and in your marketing strategy, what ends up being the best lead source, digital lead generation, repeat referral? Like in your marketing campaign, what's the best 1 or 2 channels that you're seeing out there?
Look, I mean, anybody that's analyzed lead sources inside of CRMs, most lead sources are not attributed to anything. So, I think the third-party marketplaces are at a disadvantage because the leads that do come in through those channels often perform at a pretty relatively low closing rate, right? 2, 5, 6%, something like that. And, I think, but they're influencing a great percentage of your audience, right? You're getting a lot of impressions, it's like you can't perfectly tie TV, radio, billboards. You cannot measure those things from a direct sales perspective. We went down this path with digital marketing of like proclaiming perfect measurement. It's not true. It's just not true, but we've sort of backed ourselves in a corner.
So what is the truth?
Well, look, sales market share data, that's pretty true, right? How'd you perform against your competitors? Profitability, that's pretty true, right? When you look at your financial statement, is it up or down, right? Expense lines, that's true. That's the reality of like these business leaders and business owners as dealerships, right? So I think, but marketing, I think we can get a little lost in our elitist sort of ivory tower as well, right? I can say, hey, great, Sam, I got you 1 million impressions on TikTok. And Sam's like, well, did I sell any more used cars than I did last month? And you know what I'm saying?
Or we may not have wanted the 1 million impressions on TikTok.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
On what they were.
If you got them for the wrong reasons, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Matt, you've taken a more active role, well, let's kind of preface this for a second, right? Affordability has been a huge issue. I actually think me and you have discussed this before. But we know that, right? Like, average new vehicle price is still close to 50K. Used vehicle price is still, mid to high 20s. Interest rates haven't.
Yost, of our 3,000 used cars at West Herr, I just asked our used car director yesterday, what's our average cost of inventory? It's $30,900, including service loaners. If I pull the service loaners out, it's probably $29,000. That's our cost, right?
That's your cost for used
per unit. The cost
per unit,
total. Yeah, per unit. So back when I was a used car manager, our average cost was like $20,000 a unit, right? And like this was maybe dating myself 10 years ago or whatever, right? So there's definitely some real material challenges with acquiring affordable inventory, especially financeable inventory, and keeping that average cost in a place that addresses affordability concerns. Otherwise, you're entirely beholden to incentives, to lease deals, lease offers, which doesn't really allow you to fully service and satisfy the full spectrum of credit buyers that are out there, because those are going to be mostly, tier 1 buyers.
So how are you spending your time nowadays, right? I know you've taken a more active role with Streamline, which you could talk more about that. You're looking to address negative equity affordability. Like, just tell us how you're spending your time and this affordability crusade.
Yeah, I'm the president of Streamline Auto Solutions, and what that is a fintech middleware solution that we developed at West Herr. It started humbly as a vehicle selection tool and a budget calculator, basically to help salespeople guide vehicle selection and show customers vehicles that they could afford and, most importantly, get approved on. That's turned into something where we've unlocked the inefficiencies that exist between the dealer's knowledge of underwriting programs, the lender's programs, and how we put deals together, right? If any of us who's been a manager at a retail store has been presented a deal by a salesperson, right? That's probably not a deal. LTV is 180%, or maybe we forgot to include the negative equity of the trade. It's $10,000 negative equity. Actually, the first car I ever sold, I forgot to include the trade, and it was $5,000 negative equity that we worked in. And God bless Mike Garrigan and Mike Teppenhart, the general manager and the sales manager at the time. They figured out a way to make that deal happen 20 years ago. But, listen, it happens. There's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of max advance constraints that finance managers are dealing with, right? You're trying to add extended service contracts and value add products in the back end. And it's proving difficult. We're also dealing with higher interest rates and big bank fees in certain cases. And so that's another thing to overcome. As hard as we work to acquire used cars through the variety of wholesale channels or service lane or customer pipeline lifecycle stuff, we don't want to pay a $4,000 bank fee, right? Like that's crazy. Customers can't absorb it. The payments end up being getting too high. So I'm running.
So what do you do when you say we don't want to pay a $4,000 bank fee? What do you do there?
Well, look, you're probably on the wrong car. So typically you have a different car in your inventory that could lower that bank fee. You just don't know how to unlock it. Right. And I think
okay. So you're saying that bank fee is not going to trail the customer no matter what car they go. You're simply saying in a more efficient environment, you can find different collateral, which the bank will favor for that customer. And then net bank fee comes down. A better matching process,
Absolutely.
Which I think every F&I person or desk manager that has experience with subprime can attest to that.
100%. So, I mean, during COVID, we didn't have deal structure problems, right? Artificial low interest rates, artificially high book values, false equity coming in on trades. But now coming back into reality, deal structure is of increasing importance. I'm of the opinion the majority of consumers have some budget challenge, even if they're, a tier one customer. You can be in the mid 700s, but still be kind of tapped out. Your credit card, debt is rising, household debt is rising, the available cash that you have is falling. So there's a lot of challenges that consumers are facing. And it's not just a subprime or a deep subprime problem. It's a budget problem. But now deal structure matters. And so what that means for a good used car operator is being able to place and guide customers onto cars that will manage that risk for the lender. Right. And so the more
totally understood.
The better the application, the better the decisions are, the better the rates are, the lower the bank fees are. It's a win-win-win for everybody, right? The customer gets a better car, the dealer gets a more profit, and the lender gets to manage risk.
So does the technology reside in like a dealer track Route 1, or is it inside a DMS, or where does it sit
inside of Route 1 and dealer track? So where we inject ourselves is at the point of decision, which is typically the highest pain point for the F&I office and the sales management office. You can use Streamline proactively up front in the showroom. However, if you don't, because we know dealers don't always like to change our process, and we don't like to, we like to do what we do, right? So if you run into what we call the great train wreck, you've sold somebody the wrong car, or you've come up with an unfavorable approval, now you have a path forward. Right. And ultimately, we're just in the business of guiding and serving customers. Right. So we got to figure out ways to provide them, a professional, transparent experience and move the conversation forward. If they don't have a cosigner or they don't have another $10,000 to pull out of the sky, what else can we offer them?
So that I can better help understand the solution, I'm going to ask about a competitor. So I know Darwin has a similar. Are you familiar with Darwin, JD Power, Phil Batistas? They have a similar solution. Does this differentiate a little bit from that? Like it will somehow ingest the data and then it will make recommendations based on the vehicle and then some very high level consumer information.
Yeah, if you consider what Streamline's doing is we're injecting the decision from the lender. We're also taking into consideration publicly available rate sheets. We're also taking into consideration the amount of credit decisions that come into Streamline every single day. Right now, we're processing somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 credit decisions a day. We have data on 2,000 lenders, and we're integrated with 6,200 dealers today. So at the end, we project we'll be in 11,000 dealers by the end of the year, hopefully. And our quest really is to be in every dealer in the country and providing some value towards this affordability problem. Not every customer needs it, right? Not every scenario needs to be financed first, but there are a lot of situations that customers express, they just got laid off from their job, or they're buying a third car for their kid going off to college, or, what have you. And in those situations, having a dealership have a plan of attack where we can be a little more, maybe more finance first approach, saves a lot of headache later down the road. Right. So I think that there's a lot of solutions out there. I don't think we need to even limit it to Streamline. There's a lot of solutions. You could use, your used car merchandising tool to sort by LTV if you want, right? If you want to take an approach like that. There's a lot of different ways I think dealerships can solve this problem, but having an understanding of the connection between the used car department and the finance office, really, really important. Right? However you do it. Maybe you just organize your bank-friendly cars with green balloons on the front of your lot. I don't know, like whatever. Like there's a lot of different approaches.
So looking back at this as a tool, I just want to point out something. Your career trajectory is fascinating. You worked for Nissan corporate for a while, I think, right? So you gained the perspective of that. You got some understanding of co-op. Then you come into West Herr. You work with marketing. You were very active with CDPs, with data cleansing, with lead generation, with co-op. And now you're transitioning into this space. What took you into this space? And then maybe our closing question here, what's next? Like when you look ahead at what's capable in terms of technology and whatnot, what's that next step for you, West Herr, and this company that you have now?
Well, look, Streamline was something that it was an opportunity that just kept growing internally at West Herr, and the opportunity got so big that I had to make the very difficult decision to leave the team that I love. It took me 10 years to build the marketing team that we got there, and I love every single person on the team. But the decision I thought about was, if I don't full-time commit to Streamline will probably die. My team over here in the marketing side is in good shape. I worked for 8 years side by side with Brad Gelber, 3 years with Mary Wright, who's the other marketing manager. So the team understood how I think, they think similarly, and they got it under control. But the Streamline side, entrepreneurial efforts are not for the faint of heart. And this is definitely something that requires full-time commitment. And I've realized something as of January, is when I sort of took off both hats and put the Streamline hat on full-time. I've realized some of the mental capacity that I was using for Team West Herr and using for sales operations stuff at West Herr or whatever, started becoming available for Streamline, right? Now I'm thinking about different growth strategies, thinking about how do we accelerate distribution? What sort of strategic partners exist? We might raise money at some point, we've been self-funded to date, and we've rarely never had to raise money. We're cash flow positive. However, we may raise money just to accelerate and go faster, right? But that's not an area that I had any experience in previously. And so I think it's an exciting game to always be able to learn. And I think what I enjoy about like the Streamline journey is we're helping people. So my why for Streamline is a little bit altruistic. I believe customers don't know what they can afford. They don't know what they can finance. But by guiding the dealership in a way that allows them to sell cars and make more money, the customer ends up in a better situation. The subprime ecosystem subvents the prime ecosystem. The 0% interest rates that we all get in tier 1 land are paid for by the 24% rates at the bottom of the pyramid. So I like the idea that we're trying to sort of help reshape that a little bit, help the most vulnerable customers that are out there, help the dealership be better informed and more empowered. And by the way, we help the lender.
It's an interesting perspective, by the way. Yeah, it's an interesting perspective.
Helping lenders lower their risk profile as a whole as well, is a great privilege. So win-win-win. We get to help all 3 segments.
Props to you for finding that need, aligning it with a solution, and then having, I don't know if it's courage or whatever, the fortitude to be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to jump into this area. And then Yossi, you asked the question earlier, how do you spend your time? That's the one element we all have. I think it's pretty cool in automotive that people invest their time in things where they can benefit the industry, even as they depart an area where they're pretty comfortable. You were comfortable or you were doing what you were doing. So very cool solution. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, you got to kill your ego. So like that was one of the things. In dealer land, we have a lot of ego. We're protected by franchise laws, by fancy buildings, by our suits, by our desks. I was the person saying no to all the vendors on the other side of the table, proudly, arrogantly, probably at times, or meanly at times. And I think, to go through this journey of, the entrepreneurial path, it requires humility. It requires you to actually kill the things that made you comfortable, and all the power, all the money, all the things have to go away. And then it's really, are you in it? Are you going to let the concept sort of eat you and consume you fully?
Well, Matt Lasher, executive, West Herr Automotive Group. We appreciate your perspective. We appreciate you sharing your time with us today and finding a great internet connection out in the middle of nowhere. So, Matt Lasher, thanks for being on the show.
Very interesting.
Very much. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on.
That's all right. That's what's cool about automotive. Automotive finds solutions and leans into those solutions. So
we're working on some great stuff. So you had a lot of really good insights. So
hey,
a little technical difficulties, but great show.
Yeah, next episode we're coming back to Anna because she has some great research for us on auto insurance. We ended up having to skip over that, but we'll come back on our next episode. So to all of our audience out there, thank you for watching today's episode of the Daily Dealer Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. So don't forget, we're here live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if this is your world, hit like, subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never, ever, ever miss a beat. Check out Yossi's interesting podcast that dropped this week. Get your opinion on about Chat GPT and all things tech AI, and we'll see you next episode.
Over and out.